Okay.
Sorry, it wasn't started. My bad.
Lindsay is in the room with me. She's just on the other side. She's going to be off camera. Lindsay is our, what is your title now?
Membership and outreach.
Membership and Outreach Director. I'm Tracy. I'm the executive director. We do have the two organizations in our office. The Montana Co-op Development Center is the economic development branch that creates and supports co-ops that are emerging or starting. And then we also have the Montana Council of Co-ops, which is the trade association for all existing co-ops in the state, regardless of sector. So that's a cross-sector work. But I would love if you are able to, you can use chat if you want, but please come off camera if you can and mute and tell us who you are, who you represent, what kind of project you're working on, what stage is your project, and what is a policy question that you are that is missing or urgent in your co-op right now.
I'm happy to start.
Thanks, Shelley.
So my name is Shelley Rydell. I work for a company called Resources for Learning, and we transitioned into a cooperative, not this last December, but the previous December. So it's been a year and a half, a year and 3 months. And so we, our transition was from a single owner LLC. Even though we still maintain the LLC, we had a group of employees who bought into ownership to form the cooperative. And so we kept the same EIN and same structure, but brought all the various aspects of a cooperative into play, having board, and Annalise Lawman supports us. And so that's how we heard about this opportunity. And even though we have been operating as a cooperative, it has been a huge growth curve for our team. And there are many pieces that we're still working to put in place. And one of them is our full suite of governance policies. And so that is actually something. I'm the managing director of operations for the organization, and I have a role on the board, but I am not a voting member of the board, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And so I am heavily involved in the development of policies, and I actually feel as though it's been quite grounding because we often feel like we are floundering and don't know what to do. And are we doing the things we're so we have all of these very open questions, but when I really dug into the tactical approach to building out our board policies, it helped me get this real clear picture of, oh, you have a calendar that dictates when things happen, all of these pieces that maybe that makes sense to everybody else, but these are all things that we're learning. We're very good at what we do in our professional lives, but this whole world of governance, a board, all of these things are new to us, and we're doing a lot of work to figure that out. So I'm not sure if that answered all of your questions, but I'm here because
No, it's
I
great.
do that work. And I'm finding it really helpful in terms of kind of stepping through policies that will help us know we're doing what we are supposed to be doing and when we're supposed to be doing it. So I'm very interested in just learning more and hearing about others' experiences, but we don't even have our policies in place. We have a calendar, we have KPIs, we have things like that, but we're working on our booklet of policies.
Perfect. Well, hopefully we touch on some of these that will help you today. Yeah. Fallon or Marissa, do you guys want to talk from the Pekani?
Yeah, I could talk about ours a little bit. So my name is Marissa Bremner. I am with Fast Blackfeet. We started the Pekani Tea Co-op, and I believe it just got established, I believe, in November. I'm not exactly sure on that. So for me, I had a really small part in being a part of the co-op where for me it was kind of a little bit more of recruiting people to be a part of it, but then we just didn't have too many people really involved with the whole process. So now I am somehow have become the secretary of our co-op, and um, so we're still just kind of trying to keep the ball moving, but we're just kind of like right now we do have a lot of our documents and a lot of our things in place that are needed, but I just feel like right now we're just stagnant. Just because I have very little to no experience with co-ops or really knowing what to do. So for me, I almost feel like we're at the point of trying to get some more people involved and recruited into the co-op. So yeah, I'm just kind of wondering. So what our co-op is the Pecani Tea Co-op is basically a co-op of different people within the community that either grow or gather some of our traditional native plants. So we want to kind of be like have a local sourcing of our traditional native plants and stuff like that. So yeah, for me, like I said, I don't think I was meant to be the actual secretary of the co-op, but now I am. So I'm like kind of playing a little bit of catch up on like where we're supposed to be or what we're supposed to be doing at this point. If it's acceptable to start getting people recruited in, or yeah. So I'm like I said, playing a lot of catch up and trying to learn a lot more about it.
I'm going to answer your question. Yes, you can start getting people recruited in. That is definitely a yes. Um, Fallon, I'm hoping I'm saying your name. Is it Fallon? Am I saying that correctly? Do you want to add anything?
Oh, she just stepped away momentarily too.
Okay.
So
Perfect. No worries. Am I saying her name correctly? I'm horrible about pronouncing names.
Yeah, it's Fallon.
Okay, perfect. Just making sure. And I know, Emily, you have other stuff happening and kind of listening. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'll just jump in real quick. I'm sorry, I'm guilty of multitasking, so I'm off
You're
camera.
good.
But I am with the Montana Women's Finance Co-op, and we are pretty new. We launched last summer with Tracy's help, and I'm the board treasurer. We're a board of 6 and all volunteer. So we actually have just finalized our governance policy. So this feels timely and because it's been on all of our minds. And that has been with the help of Tracy, of course, and also our board chair is really amazing and has a lot of board experience. So I think she was able to just pull those governance policies from other boards and adapt them for ours. And also some guidance that we were recently given by an attorney that Tracy connected us with. We just finalized our whistleblowing policy that kind of goes hand in hand with that because we are a finance co-op. But I don't know that I don't think there's anything glaring missing from a policy standpoint right now, but maybe I'll feel differently by the end of the presentation.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily. Lindsay, do you want to add anything?
We are also doing policy stuff.
You want to? So Lindsay also has her own project that she's been working on, the Montana Food Hub. So she works for us as well as does this. So you're working on policies.
Neck deep in policies on our side too. So
which is why we started having a discussion on how we can help do policies. So this is just going to do an overview of kind of how they all work together. When we're talking about board governance, your first and foremost are your incorporation documents. And Shelley, I am going to put a little bit of preference here. I don't know Texas laws, so there might be some changes. I doubt because we are kind of high level here, but if anything sounds off, let me know. So you have your legal formation that you have submitted to the Secretary of State or like-minded in Texas. And those are your incorporation documents that give you your main structure, your legal formation. From there, you have developed bylaws. Your bylaws are your governing documents. These give you your foundational structure on how you are going to run your co-op. This will give you how many board members you have, how are you going to select those board members, all of that basic information there. Now, when we've been working with most of you guys, we also tell you to keep your bylaws somewhat flexible in the sense that you can create policies that really clarify procedures, standards, those repetitive decision components. So that gives you the flexibility as a board to move through your day-to-day and your governance duties while you still have your bylaws giving you your foundation. Bylaws need to be reviewed often. We recommend startup co-ops 6 months to a year that you've reviewed your starting bylaws. Make amendments well before, or make revisions that you want to bring to your board well before, not board, sorry, I'm messing this up. you identify your revisions that you want to bring to your membership at your annual meeting. And then that's how you change your bylaws. That's an annual thing that you can be doing on bylaw changes, where policies can be updated and become more living documents. So as you're developing policies, though, one of the things is, who does this policy apply for? Are you doing policy to address your directors, your board of directors, members? If you start having employees, where are those policies? Or is this an overarching policy thing? That's really an important part as we kind of go into this. Do you want to go ahead, Lindsay, and share our toolkit too? So we did create a mini toolkit that you guys can have that goes into those kind of comments, or it follows along with this slide presentation, and then we can get you guys a little bit more detail that you get to have. Any questions on how those kind of work together? Articles, incorporation documents, bylaws, policies. Is that all fit? Okay. Lindsay's working on getting that through. Okay. So the way I broke this down, the first step is, in my mind, we have 4 different types. You have your board governance policies. These are the ones most of you guys are working on from the sounds of it, or that I know. Your membership policies, personnel policies, and then co-op wide operationals. There will be some overlap, but the way that you treat these might be different, even though you might have a conflict of interest for board and membership. The way that you treat them and the way that can be dealt with can be different. So you have to take those into account when you're dealing with policies. Do any of you guys have ones that feel a little bit more urgent that you're working on?
We are getting into our membership policies a little bit more and realizing where there may be some gaps.
Okay. So then diving in a little bit deeper. So we've got board governance policy. This is how you run your cooperative. So board governance policies, these can include, so this is what you do have a little overlap in your bylaws. If you're creating a board governance policy booklet or a document, it's good to talk about the roles, your fiduciary duties, what are your meeting procedures, how are you making decisions, to kind of pull some of that information from your bylaws over into your governance policies. Conflict of interest is probably one of the bigger ones, and it seems to be kind of raising its ugly head a little bit more than what we've seen in the past. And there is conflicts, and then there's perceived conflicts, and you kind of have to think about how to do both of those and how you're going to address those. The biggest thing with conflict of interest, if you have this happening or there's a perceived one happening, is that you disclose that potential early on, and you want to create an atmosphere in your board where board members feel very comfortable to say, hey, I really should abstain from voting on this because XYZ is a business that I deal with, or that is my nephew in small rural towns. That is a huge issue, right? I've been working in rural my whole life, and sometimes you just have family that interacts, and how do you make that happen? So it's really about disclosing, removing yourself from being the direct person making those decisions, and opening that door for discussions when there is. We do, in your toolkit, at the back of it is a disclosure conflict of interest document. It's a template that you can use. The other big one that I see is confidentiality. And like Emily, for you guys, this is another really big one where some co-ops can be more fluid with their topics, right? They can maybe be a little bit more public with what is happening and all of that. When it comes down to how you handle your non-public information. And so for the Women's Finance Cooperative, they might be getting, well, they're going to be getting information on private businesses. That does not get talked outside of the channels that you have designed for it. Marissa and Fallon, you guys might have business information about some of your tea producers. So you decide in your board policy what is public and what is non-public, and how do you protect it and how do you share it. Another one, and it's not necessarily even called a policy, but something that you often see in policies, a code of conducts. This is your expectations of how you are all going to behave. And this one too seems to be getting a little bit more attention. This is how do you design what your expectations are for each other as board members. And then that also is setting up kind of your norms and your culture of your board, because it gives you that preparation and some behavior. So when you have new members coming on, you've set this code of conduct that they read and that they should sign off on, saying, yes, I agree that I can conduct myself in that manner. And then what happens in your policy if something bad goes wrong, or something goes wrong, or something bad happens? How are you going to actually handle complaints about things from board to board, and then also from these other factors, your members, your employees, outside vendors, things along that lines? Do we have any questions on kind of what we would expect within the board governance?
And the link to download it is in there. I had to hide it on our website because I can't.
Oh, so
Directly
she
upload
put
it
a
in
link
chat.
because we couldn't just give it to you in chat, evidently. Oh, and that's what is in the chat.
Thanks, Emily.
Okay, so let's move us to what membership policies are. So these are members' right and expectations. And in the network of co-op developers, this is starting to kind of come up in a lot of discussions on what is good conduct and good standing. So when we're talking about membership policies, the first thing, again, you may pull some of this over from your bylaws. It's not changing your bylaws, but who may join, what are your member benefits, and how is standing maintained. That is in most of your bylaws, but you're not going to change that. You can bring it over so then it's in an easy accessible document that you can give to members. Conduct and good standing, how are you having respectful participation, and what are things that you will not accept from your membership? I don't have any examples off the top of my head because I haven't really had much to deal with. I think one of the questions was if you have a member out there really bad mouthing your co-op or no longer participating and giving a lot of issues to, like, I don't know, giving a lot of complaints out into the community or causing a lot of harm, how are you going to do that? And did you ever state what those expectations are? Did you have a complaint process that if members have concerns, management or board, they've had an issue with an employee, how can they get into it? Because you have to remember who owns your co-op. It's the members that own your co-op. So if they are having issues, do you have a process and a policy in place to handle those? And then, because it can happen, what is your policy if you have to discipline or terminate? This is a fair process. This is why you should have a policy around it, because if you have to deny or remove a member, or you are like they've done something where you're suspending them, what is that process to do so? And what does their investment in your co-op, where does that go? How do you do that? And then communication and transparency is also part of this. And you should have a policy. How are you communicating and being transparent to your members? Now, these don't have to be individual policies. It all could be in one longer document, but these are topics that you should really kind of address in this.
Can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
This is just, I don't know if this is like language or misunderstanding, but it's hard for me to even wrap my brain around. We think of anything like board level policies, all of those as governance policies. And I understand. So so when they're broken out in this, I still am thinking of all of these as being
Yep.
governance. Yes. Okay. So that's right.
Yep.
And then, so And everything, I just want to make sure I'm clear. You're describing here when we're describing like suspension, or this is all about board. Because we try to keep everything governance very separate from operations of the organization. And so I just want to make sure that's how this is.
Okay, so Shelley, I think you have your governance documents. In that is how are you going to handle your members? So in that board is if you get a complaint from a member, or for you guys, you're all kind of you're worker owned. So your members are workers. So the language might be a little different. But if you have a complaint process or you need to let somebody go, that should be lined out that you have that procedure and that you guys have overseen that as a board.
Okay, part of that I think is confusing to me is we might be unique in that we are all of our current members are owners and are on the board. Does that make sense?
That's fun. Yep.
So we don't have other
Yep.
employees, but they're not members, owners. And so I think so this in theory is working when there are members who are employees but not serving on the board.
Yeah, that would be for you. Yep, not your board member. Sorry, I didn't understand that on yours. Yeah, so for you, because your members are all board members, you would be mostly in your governance. You wouldn't necessarily have to have detailed membership ones. But if you're in one that has, like some of our food co-ops will have 800.
Kind of weird, and I think I had it structured in a way in my head. I wanted to make sure I'm clear, but it also makes sense that if we do grow to that we would need this. But even right now, our board has 4. 2 of those are managing directors who report to the board but don't vote. So we only have 2 voting board members. So even if we grow, we'd fill in slots. So I'm not sure when we'll get to the point where we have this larger membership. And I don't mean to take time away from
No, please, this is what this is about. Please ask questions and stuff. And so that is the difference between Texas and Montana right now. For us, the baseline is at least 3 members. Like we can't have a co-op that has just 2 voting members. So there's there are definitely some differences between states too.
So it's not ideal. This is just how things played out.
It's how it works. Yep. Yeah. And you'll grow. You'll grow into it.
Okay. That's what I am thinking of this in the same way, but this is a description of this larger membership. But for us,
as you grow,
one body, and so we're thinking in terms of governance. So yeah. Okay, got it.
Yeah. Any other questions on this front? All right. Well, moving us into kind of the next, and
I do have a quick question if you don't mind, Tracy. Do you recommend having for the membership policies, do you recommend that being something that's like voted on at the annual meeting versus sort of superimposed by the board?
Oh, that's a good question. They don't technically have to because it's governance policies are normally set by board. If you're adding the conduct and stuff like that, I would not do that in a silo. I don't know if I would necessarily have it voted on as much as give opportunities while developing it for your members to have a say in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll double check. I don't believe, in my experience and knowledge, you don't have to have policies approved by membership because that is the right of the board. And a lot of your bylaws and the way that we've structured them for you guys is it gives the board the authority to set policies. So I think it would actually confuse the situation. But as everybody's heard me say, minus Shelley, who you just met me today, I do not give legal advice. So I can always double check on that.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a nice way to go about it, is to ask for input, but still sort of structure it as a board.
Yeah. I think if you got into a point where you were trying to get your membership, especially as you guys are growing, think about 40 people voting on a policy. That just makes me kind of want to shiver a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Great question. All right, go forward. Okay, so then personnel policies. So this is going to be a little different depending on if you have staff, if you don't have staff, if you're working towards staff. I don't think many of you, minus Shelley, where you guys are employees and owners, you have this yet, but I am going to just go through some of the things we see in personnel policies. In personnel policies, this is more for your management side to develop. So an executive director, general manager, I would recommend that he takes it to the board for at least a review and oversight, because again, they are the authority to approve this kind of stuff. But they should include anti-discrimination, anti-harassment, employee grievance process. Do not have this. If you start hiring employees, make sure you have a grievance process in place. Personnel conflict and confidentiality. So similar to what you see on the board side, but more from your employees. What are you expecting? Excuse me, your whistleblower and your retaliation. This is an opportunity to say if an employee sees something, that they have an avenue to take that up and whistleblow, saying that this is not right without a retaliation from a supervisor or higher up in the company. You can do, and I know Emily, you mentioned this, you can do a whistleblower on the board level too, which is actually very good. That is calling out from board to board if something's going wrong, especially in most of your guys' cases where you're the managing working board because you don't have employees this time. And then the manager supervision, clarifying the governance of what does a board do versus what the manager does and how that goes. So we're not going to dive deep in that because I don't think many of you guys are at this stage, but this is something that I think all of you should be looking at on how you develop. And ideally you develop this before you hire people. Any questions on this one?
I kind of, so sorry, I might be a little bit confused about that too. So at what point would a co-op have a manager, I guess? Even just that's a little bit confusing to me.
Yeah, so that's usually part of the business planning process that we help you work with is when are you at a stage financially that you can bring on a manager and what is that going to cost you? And so I know, like, can I go ahead and share Montana Food Hub? They have planned out how much it would take to bring on a part-time manager. So they use their business planning documents to figure out, okay, this is how much it's going to cost. This is the role that that person will do. This is why it's a value. How much do we have to bring in income to cover that cost? And so at that time, and Marissa, I think your other deeper question is for like, and I don't want to speak for the food hub, but since I can, since Lindsay just said I could, they really went back and forth, but as a working board, it was becoming too overwhelming for them to not look at how they finance it. So they've actually gone after some different funding mechanisms to get enough money to bring on somebody to help them grow into that next phase. So that's a very case by case question, depending on where you're at in your process and where you're financially able to afford or not afford a person.
Okay, yeah, that does kind of sound like a little bit where we're at with this. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. And then kind of these co-op operational policies. This will be a little bit as you get personnel, some of this may have to change, and these are why we're saying policies are kind of living documents. But boards are responsible for their financial management, budgeting, making sure you have internal controls, overseeing, and what kind of audits are you doing? Have you done reserves? Have you done, like, how are you, the surplus is your distribution. So if you have income, which you're all striving for eventually, where you're giving out dividends or patronage back to your membership or your employee ownership, in Shelley's case, that financial management comes into a policy. You can call it a financial policy. It could be as fine-tuned as who is going to take money How is that money going to be tracked? You can get really detailed on this, or you can have more of a general overview. The financial policies can be often tied into just the overall board governance policies too. So these are just topics that I want to make sure are included somewhere within your governance structure. Risk management. Now, some of you might have incorporated some of these into your bylaws. Others might have left it out and saying that it will be developed by the board. But insurances, that you will comply with legal, that you are looking at how you're maintaining your records. And then crisis response, that is something I don't think any of you should jump into right now. But what happens if I don't know, what's a good crisis example? I'm drawing a blank. A fire comes through and your building that you just built is gone, right? Knock on wood, nobody ever has to deal with that. But how do you handle these type of situations? That is kind of a longer term strategy that you want to work on, but it's something to think about in that risk management. I kind of touched, but keeping records, where are you storing, protecting, and how are you destroying records? That is becoming a bigger deal, especially in the world of cybersecurity. How are you protecting and destroying materials, and what can you get rid of? Because you want to maintain a historical record of your co-op and where you're at, but do you want to keep every sheet of paper that you've ever had? Those are things that you'll want to kind of look through. And then if you receive any federal or state dollars, there are requirements within them on what you have to store and what you can destroy. So those all should be within some type of a policy. Again, that's probably not something you have to jump right into in the stages that most of you guys are in, but something to be thinking about long term. Grant and regulatory compliance. I just mentioned that state and federally funds can add to some compliance requirements. So you want to create an avenue that you guys can build, like if you need to, I'm just telling my board right now, we're going to have to create a new bank account for some funds we're going to get. That's actually not outlined in any of our policies on how we accept federal dollars. So it's triggering an update to a policy, right? And so you'll see that as you get into it and you grow and you move, things will trigger and you're like, oh, we need to update, or that's not within our policy. Another big one that's coming forward is if you have employees or a board member that has a debit card or a credit card, how are you tracking that? What is the policy around the use of that? And then operational wise, where are your reviews of your mission and your goals? How often are you going to do those? And how often are you reviewing your incorporation and your bylaws? Those are more these longer term strategy components, but you should be thinking about adding those into your governance structure that, hey, every 5 years, we're going to review and do a check-in. Are we still meeting the reason why we formed in the first place? Any questions or things that you want to talk about on this one? Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, you do have some common overlaps. Grievance, complaints, discrimination, confidentiality, conflict of interest. Those can go from a board to members to employees to even your vendors. So those are things that you are there, but I touched on this. You have to design how you're going to handle those. If it's board to board, that's going to be different from an employee to a board member. If it's a vendor complaining that they feel that they were discriminated or harassed at your co-op, that's going to be different from an employee, right? And so how are you going to handle these situations, and what are you going to do? In your handout that we gave you, there is some of these and why we separate them to kind of help you talk through as a board, what kind of routine are you guys going to develop to handle situations that may arise? You hope that none of these ever arise, but it could happen. And how do you handle them so that your co-op can continue to move forward? All right. And then there are other policies that may be useful. I picked kind of the ones that I thought were kind of bringing forward and kind of bringing you into those 4 topic areas. I want to make sure that's the way my brain thinks, and it's very linear in process sometimes. If you need to, you could create, like Shelly, you were talking about, just one large governance policies and everything's under one, and you don't have to break them out. You should have those kind of components, though, on how you deal with those different issues. Other things you might want to consider is board election and succession. You should have a baseline of how you're doing that in your bylaws, but if you want to go deeper, committee charters. So again, your bylaws probably have something related to committees, but if you want to dive in deeper and create an actual structure around those. Board self-evaluation, when and how you do that could be a good one. How you're using cyber and AI. This one is huge right now. AI usage, everybody I know in the nonprofit and co-op world are trying to get their head around what is our AI policy and what are we going to do? How is the co-op going to protect sensitive data while also kind of falling into this new world that we're living in? Do not try to do all of these at once. That's my thing. You gradually are going to do these, guys. This is something that you're working towards. They're not this, I don't know any organization that's just perfect and here's their perfectly designed policy book. Maybe it looks beautiful and it's been sitting on a shelf and they don't really use it. But if you're truly using these the way that we want you to be or that we're recommending, it's that living movement and you're constantly kind of looking and changing them to fit the needs and the processes, and you're going to learn through the whole thing too. Anything here that you want to discuss?
Do you have, just on that same vein, do you have sort of a priority approach to all these different
Right.
policies?
My priority approach is to do those board ones first. Get your conflicts in your confidentialities. Emily, I think where you guys are heading is pretty much right on point. And then work into more of those membership focused ones. You should probably do that. That financial policy would be high priority to me as well. Whether you incorporate that, since you guys don't, none of you guys have personnel, I have that really low right now. And then I would probably board governance as far as your, sorry, I'm just putting this all in order in my head. Financial policy, and then your confidentiality, conflict of interest. I would definitely get grievance processes in place for vendors, members, and board, and have that lined out. And that kind of goes with your the conflict and the confidentiality. Those two, if those get broken, what are you going to do with them? Or your discrimination if that happens.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And because I just brought it up and it's right in front of me, the AI. I would get on AI, telecommunication usage, that kind of stuff. If you don't have employees, use of telecommunication, remote work, not that big of a deal, but probably how are you securing your data, especially Emily, for you guys, would be a big one.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, we're just looking into receiving membership fees by ACH, so that one is going to be relevant very soon.
Yeah. And, so I've been using the term policies, and I do interchange policies and procedures. And policies and procedures can go hand in hand. I focused on policies, but some of these are maybe not policies as much as laying out, this is the procedure we're going to take for XYZ.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. So this is your chance. This is more the peer-to-peer component. Do you have questions? And it doesn't just have to be on the policies. If we've kind of covered that and you don't have any of those, let us know. How can we support you guys in what is next? We did give that, like we designed that little toolkit. It does have some examples in the back, but if you have comments back to us, we're always very open to feedback on how we can improve and what we can be bringing forward. Other topics you want to talk, this is your time. Or other needs you might have.
I guess for me, like I said, kind of like where I feel like our next step is too is just getting a little bit more people involved, some more membership going, and I'm just kind of wondering like what's normally like the most appropriate way to do that. I was wondering if it's like some sort of like large meeting with people interested or a gathering, or if there's like an online forum of some sort, or like yeah, I've kind of been looking into a few different examples. So yeah, I was just kind of wondering like how like what's usually normal or appropriate for a co-op for recruiting members.
Yeah. Before I give you my ideas, I'm gonna Lindsay with the Food Hub. They're in a similar vote, and Emily, you also are kind of working on it. Would you guys want to add anything first?
We're asking our network to share with their network. So we're asking our members to invite people they know that would be a good fit, because people usually know people like themselves that'd be a good fit for it.
Did you guys hear her? Okay. Yeah.
Could you repeat the question?
So what Marissa was asking is just kind of how and what venues are good ways to recruit members in a simpler. Is that good, Marissa, to kind of overcap? Is that, yeah.
Yeah. I would just say, I don't think it's terribly inventive, but we have been at all of our meetings, we've just been discussing any and every opportunity that we have to sort of get our get exposure to the public, and that has meant like speaking engagements, or I attended sort of a potential partner organizations networking event like last week, and um, we're early stage, but we're starting to think about a marketing campaign, hopefully within the next quarter, and that for us is probably going to look like a lot of social media, and um, well, and we're also geared towards rural communities. And so we've talked about, making sure we're represented on bulletin boards and things. Um, so that has been our approach, and it's worked for us thus far.
Yeah, and to add to that, in the years I've been doing co-op development, it is very different, and it also depends on them. So, Shelly, I'm gonna give, if you have examples, it sounds like you guys are more focused on a specific kind of target for your membership. Are you guys in the same thing of trying to grow membership right now?
I think we're in a really different place than most other cooperatives. And then imagine we were a single owned LLC full of employees and a single owner for 20 years. Not all of us were employed for that full period, but a long and robust company history. And this transition to cooperative was really driven by the previous owner who wanted to retire. And I know there's a lot out there in the co-op world of this being an opportunity for transition and ownership when the single owner looks to retire, that the current employees can buy into that. And so we really are employee, those who are employed by their company are employed because we have contracts for work that can sustain us, right? So we're not, it's different in terms of we on the operational side can only employ those who we can employ due to the contracts that we have and how much we could bring in each year. And so those of us who originally bought into ownership, the idea would be to extend that opportunity for ownership and membership to all employees, and we're only a company of 8. And so right now, 4 of us are already in the mix. For the other 4, there's one who is part of the original group but decided not to buy in. So we have 3 other employees that membership would be an option, but we haven't opened membership because we had a really rough transition, like really rough in terms of for a number of reasons, and we're still just getting our feet under us. And so with Annalise's support, we're trying to get the board stabilized to a degree so that we can open up membership. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, and why I wanted to make sure I gave you an opportunity. So every co-op is going to look a little bit different in how they do membership recruitment. And so for you guys, there you have a very structured target where the food hub, the women's finance, and the tea producers, they have a more broad one. So Marissa, for you guys, you're looking more at producers in your community. So my thoughts on that one comes back to, can you invite them in for a meal and sharing the idea and concept and invite them to become members that way? You could do a bigger process if you want. We see community meetings do have some benefits if people show up, right? I think we all struggle with getting people to come at times to time. Is there events that you could go to, kind of what Emily was talking about? What are some events that your potential members are going to that you guys could set up a booth, or that you can do handouts, those type of activities? Some of our most successful ones, we have seen like Butte Food Co-op. They have not yet moved into operations, but they had a huge turnout for their membership recruitment right out of the gate. And they really delved into social media, going to events. They had really nice documentation explaining what the co-op is and how it was moving forward. And so it will depend on your target and your community a little bit, but I think that might be something we could even fine tune into a next topic, because it does keep coming up on it seems like a good chunk of our our clients are in this vote or in this process.
Yeah, and that just kind of a little bit reassures like some of my ideas that I already had about the recruitment process too, because we have a pretty large pool of people now that we are working with that already kind of have a lot of background in what we're trying to do and everything. So, I mean, there's a large pool of them. And for me, it's just kind of, I guess, figuring out the best like presentation method to them, or, and having the proper, I guess just presentation format on how to pull people in. So yeah, that just kind of reassures some of my ideas I already had. So thank you.
Yeah, and we're here to help. Like if you want to run by and say, hey, this is kind of what the presentation looks like. Do you have examples? We can pull, like Butte's been really good saying, hey, use ours. And I know that I can pull from some of our other projects that we've worked on, that if you want any of those resources, or if you want. The other thing I'm going to let you guys know is Lindsay and one of the guys from the Montana Electric Co-op Association, they have quarterly membership outreach, and
anybody who's public facing.
Yeah, anybody that's public facing in their co-op, they are doing different, like a little cohort. Their next meeting is April 23rd.
I think so.
23rd. It will focus more on how do you outreach to your members for like an annual meeting, but that cohort might be something if you're interested in membership development. This is focused more on the council side. So a lot of these guys that are participating in that, and it's just starting, I think there's 5 or 6 members right now. They're all existing co-ops that have been around for a while, and they're having these discussions. And so it might be worthwhile for you guys to pop your head in every once in a while. And if you're interested, Lindsay can throw it in. She popped it in the chat. So you guys can kind of follow along and see if that's something that you want to do and learn from what our other co-ops are doing. So we are kind of rounding out the hour, and this was promised to just stay an hour. I'm able to stay on if there's anybody that wants to talk further. We would love to hear back from you guys on what other topics you want us to be looking at. I think we are looking at some potential around taxes, co-op taxes. We've been talking about, we had a whole list in there.
Yeah, we have a whole list, but if they have requests,
Yeah. So taxes will probably be one that we're diving into a little bit more, bringing in an expert because I can't talk about taxes. And then I think we were also like leadership, some co-op leadership, which might be interesting as you guys move in, community leadership and stuff like that. So we're very open, and in your toolkit that we've provided in the back, there is like a board policy book outline. It's not the be all and end all, it's a starting point. You have an annual conflict of disclosure form and a confidentiality statement. I'm going to leave you that should be reviewed annually by your board, and they should sign those annually too, which is also a trigger that I need to do that with my own boards. Anything else that you guys want to talk about or give me comments, feedbacks, anything like that?
This has been really helpful and love the toolkit.
Yay, thank you.
Thank you.
It's hard to do a toolkit that's going to fit everybody, but trying. So any feedback as you dive into it, let me know. I'm very open for those.
Yeah, thank you for all your help, and I'm sure I'll be reaching back out soon.
Sounds good. And Marissa, I know you and I've done a lot of emails back and forth. Browning's not that far. If you need me to come up and just sit with you guys for a little bit, let me know.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome. Well, with that, I think we're going to let you guys go. Enjoy your afternoon. It's always good to see you all, and know that we're here. If you have any questions or you need anything, we're just a email or a phone call away. And as I'm telling everybody, if I don't respond, nudge me again. Have a good one.